Is it May 12th? I think it's May 12th.
Yes, it is. May 12th.
Thank you, guest. This is the Morning Brushback podcast. Thanks for being here. I'm your co-host, Dan Blewett. I'm here remotely by way of Chicago by my co-host, Bobby Stevens. Robert, how you doing?
Dan, I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm phenomenal. And our guest today is my former business partner, current strength coach, and just multifaceted human, Lucas Cook. How are you, sir? What doesn't he do? Well, if you don't know Lucas Cook, we were the duo. I'm wearing our old Warbird shirt.
Yeah, you're right.
Yep. Lucas is a strength coach in Central Illinois. Also phenomenal hitting coach. Also phenomenal self-taught graphic designer, which, I mean, he designed this shirt. He designed my book covers. You've done logos for lots of different companies now. The Morning Brushback logo. Yep. That's an obvious one that I forgot. So I've always looked good thanks to Lucas. Lucas basically clothes me in graphic design. So
that's right.
Which is an underrated part of business. Basically, if your business has really bad logoing and branding, just like be ready to kind of go under. I mean, how do you feel about that, Lucas? How important is branding and logos?
Well, it's insane. And it's like I really think it's the only thing that matters. I was talking to my brother about this the other day because years ago, he had aspirations of opening a brewery, and that was kind of when that's what every single person in the world wanted to do. And now with coronavirus, all of these breweries are going under. And so he's like, oh man, like now might be a good time to pounce on some cheap, equipment and stuff. And we were talking about it, and I was just kind of picking his brain on like why, because I drink Budweiser, so my beer tastes are pretty,
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do.
Yeah, I do. And so I was like, what makes one company more successful than another? And he was like, entirely marketing, 100%. I was like, damn. Or like, I get those stupid Instagram ads all the time. All those products are like cheap Chinese products, and they all are just marketed really well with cool graphic design.
Well, what's a better slogan than King of Beers?
Like, Bobby, this is my entire point.
I don't want the print.
The drunkest beer. The drunkiest beer.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is the Sultan of beers. No.
I have a lot of friends from Wisconsin, and they all drink Miller, and their argument is always like, well, we have the champagne of beers. And I was like, that's stupid as hell. I don't want to drink champagne.
Champagne's kind of,
That's a brunch beer.
It's dainty.
It's not your everyday. It's not your everyday. Like, get home from work, try and stave off.
It's not an industrial beer. Lucas says, I just put in 11 hours at the coal mine, and I need to take the edge off.
And I'm like king of the castle.
I spent my day keeping America running. Give me a beer.
Right.
Yeah, you don't ask for a Corona. Well, especially not today.
Not now.
No.
So for those of you listening, we're live on Twitter /Periscope. They're basically the same thing. Also YouTube. So hello, if you're joining there, feel free to use the live chat. We're going to have a pretty interesting conversation today. We're going to talk a little bit about a couple topics. Number one, should you run with a mask on outside? This is dear to my heart because I get angry when I see people doing this. Number two, we're going to talk about Major League Baseball's reopening plans. We'll have a good discussion about that, as opposed to a bad discussion. Tournament companies. I think this is a great time for everyone in America to let baseball tournament companies go bankrupt and just flush us of this stupid system that we've been just stuck with for so long. Oh, let's spend $5,000 a family every weekend to go play 4 games, maybe get rained out, and generally have a subpar experience.
Yeah.
We're also going to talk about college baseball because Lucas is a college strength coach. Talk a little bit about the differences, because if you haven't been to a college baseball game recently, even junior college, and Lucas is the strength coach for a very strong junior college program, those kids are big and strong. Like, they are very formidable humans. And this has been a change over many years. I mean, back in the day, maybe like the Division I programs where they had a really well-equipped football weight room would be like physically bigger. But today it's pretty uniform. Let's start there. Lucas, would you agree with that? What's the state of college baseball lifting, and what kind of physicality do you need to play at that level?
Yeah, I think we are in a little bit of a unique scenario where I'm the coach. But I mean, if they were all just wearing unbranded T-shirts and you walked into our weight room, they look like a D1 college baseball.
For sure.
And yeah, it's just like it's it seems like with every passing year, there's just like 60 times keep coming down, exit velos keep going up, and it's just like this, like you said, the size of. I remember you remarked that you went to watch them play like a couple years ago, and we're just like, what? Both they and the team they were playing. Yeah. And I mean, I do think like as much as I'm going to crap on social media and then coming however long this is hour, there has been like a pressure, I think, on the strength industry to like just be better than it has been over the last 2 decades or whatever, as well as like the increasing level of competition amongst. I mean, this is all this stuff is related, like the tournament model, the showcase model, and like the rise of the showcase player who has really, really obvious tools. Maybe you can't play baseball, but the showcase is just speed, like, but the showcase is just how big and strong and fast can you be, and then does that market to somebody. Oh, sorry, I thought I heard someone talking, but yeah, I would say that it's and it's like at where I am, it's just like when you're a college athlete, that's the only thing that you do. Like they don't they don't study all that much, so they're spending like,
what a waste.
Yeah, if you look at their calendar or their schedule over the course of a day, it's sleep, eat, lift, and go to practice. That's all they do.
It's like an Olympic schedule.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what Bobby, like when Dan was talking a second ago, that's what I was thinking about. It's like, it is very much like college athletes are pros, basically.
Especially at junior college, because you can really feel like, because I work with Triton Junior College up here a little bit, and I feel like a lot of those guys have half online classes. So at that point, it's like you're on your own time for the online classes. You have to maybe show up in person 1 or 2 classes a week. And you really, I mean, you've got plenty of time.
Yeah, and even at like bigger D1s, they'll set requirements for your study hours. So you might have to get 10 or 15 hours a week of studying in, whereas where we are, it's 5. Yeah. So there's a lot more laxity in terms of who's dictating their schedule outside of practice and lifting. And some of like a lot of the guys I work with, despite sometimes my best intentions, will come in and lift 2 days a week or 2 times a day. So
it's a lot of lifting.
Nice to have some dedicated athletes running through the program.
Yeah, I mean that's what I always tell them is I was like, because I'll have to yell at them for doing bicep curls for 40 minutes after we get done lifting, and I'm like, listen, I'd rather have to be pulling on the leash to get them out of the gym rather than the other way around.
Yeah. Well, so we're going to come back to, because I want to talk about specifics on lifting a little bit today, because I think the at-home stuff has kind of drawn my ire personally, like on Instagram, where I'm saying, oh, like here's 11 new variations of stuff that doesn't do anything. Like, so I want to talk about it and get your opinion on what people should be doing at home, what they shouldn't be doing. But let's transition into Major League Baseball's reopening plan. So, Robert, what's the latest on this development? So it looks like we're going to have baseball, obviously, right? And the whole country feels like it's easing off the restrictions. It just feels, even though there's not a whole lot different in this week in DC, well, there's one thing, like we can be in parks. Like I asked a cop, I was in a park this weekend where I got previously like shoot along, like, hey, you can't sit here. They're like 3 weeks ago. So I asked the guy, I'm like, hey.
Like a homeless person.
Well, DC also does have a really, unfortunately, large homeless population. But so they're letting people stay in parks, like you can sit there with a blanket and do whatever. But it seems like we're going to have baseball. So what is Major League Baseball? What are they proposing at the moment? And what do you think about it?
So it sounds like July 4th is going to be the opening, 80 something games.
It's very American.
Very American, but patriotic. An expanded playoff format. It seems very fluid right now, but I think the goal is to get everybody into spring training, working, ready to go. The big hiccup when we were talking off air, and I don't know the specifics, and Lucas didn't know either, but the revenue share program and the owners proposing to MLBPA an alternative revenue share, because they won't have fans, concessions, a lot of their revenue streams this year. And I just read the big pushback from the MLBPA would be like this is kind of the segue for owners to institute a salary cap of some sort. So that seems to be that. And I've seen a few of the big leaguers. The reliever for the Nationals, Doolittle, came out, and Phil Hughes, I saw, was pretty active on Twitter. Their big gripe seems to be, and I don't know if it's a gripe, just more of the players aren't just going to accept to go back unless there's some safety precautions taken for them specifically and their families. So I don't really know if this proposal is going to get through as is, or if there's going to be some big pushback, but I think it's a start. I think everybody's got to make concessions. As much as I'm pro player, from the financial side, get as much money as you can. The owners really don't necessarily care about you. You're just an asset to them. I am all for the guaranteed contracts, but this year specifically, I think there's got to be some compromise. Not that you need to have sympathy for a billionaire, but
yeah. So let me read off the key facts right here. So the plan looks like the designated hitter would become a part of National League play, which is interesting. Also, I think, let's talk about that. Like you said, 4th of July weekend, 82 game season. The All-Star game will be called off. Obviously, like what do we give an All-Star game? Oh, you had 41 good games. Congratulations. Postseason play, like you said, from 10 to 14 teams. Roster sizes will be 30 instead of 26, which they upped it to 26 last year. Have we had a season under 26 yet, or we haven't tackled that yet?
This will be the first season with 26.
This was going to be the first, so they've actually added 5 to the roster as from last year,
which is a big win for MLB.
It is because we don't need Chris Davis pitching, even though he's dirty. Apparently, I was watching him pitch against like the Red Sox or something when the Orioles won like an 18-inning game. He was throwing dirty changeups and 89 miles per hour. And then the big thing is, right now they're proposing that MLB players will split. So players would receive a percentage of their 2020 salaries based on a 50-50 split of revenues MLB receives. So, Lucas, what are your thoughts about all this?
Well, I think it's worth explaining, like Bobby mentioned this a second ago, that MLB currently doesn't have a salary cap, whereas like the other major sports like the NFL have salary caps basically that teams, or basically an allowance to pay players, where the MLB doesn't have that. So, I think that's like one of the things that the PA is scared about. What I don't understand is, so one of the things I read was they were like, oh, well, obviously you're going to have to do testing on everyone. So everyone's going to have to be tested, including like media and security staffing and all that kind of things. And then the guy who they quoted was like, yeah, and obviously that testing is going to have to be daily. And I was like, I just didn't understand the logistics of testing the entirety of the Major League Baseball every day. Yeah. Oh my God, those videos are terrifying, by the way. How far that thing has to go in. And the other thing that is, like, I'm curious what's going to happen when the first player of significance tests positive and then can't play. That's going to be a problem for.
Well, Bobby, this is opening up for conspiracy theory for you. So, like, hey, we really need a win, and Clayton Kershaw is going to pitch tomorrow. Can we get someone to make a positive test for Clayton the day before?
Yeah. Whose doctor's doing the testing?
Whose doctor's doing the testing?
The Diamondbacks doctor gets paid off. They go in
that
there.
Just sounds fun. That just sounds fun, honestly. Like, let's have that happen at least once. Like, just once.
Go in there and make sure Bellinger.
It's a good scandal. Yeah.
Has a 110 fever.
The Astros they're already way ahead of us. They've already figured out how to do this.
You can hire like Corona assassins, like people who have Corona, to sneak into his house and cough in his mouth.
Oh, that's the new running onto the field. Like, you run onto the field, just hug your favorite player that you don't want to play tomorrow. Just get real close.
Coach, I need a week off.
Oh man, that would be amazing. But so go ahead, Robert.
I was gonna say I don't know if the salary cap is the pertinent issue here. I mean, especially with we've already got a luxury tax in baseball. Like, you spend over 217 million, something like that. You pay a tax on every,
and you can't pass go. Is that right?
No, you collect $200, but you I think you pay like a dollar for dollar tax on every. So if you spend 220 million, you pay a $3 million luxury tax. So you go over the luxury tax, you got to pay that much back to MLB, whatever.
Speaking of luxury tax, have either of you played Monopoly this year? Like, no. during coronavirus?
I haven't played Monopoly since I was like 12.
The luxury tax card. Like, it's funny you bring that up. Like, I never understood what that was. So like, this just pisses me off. Like, $75 for what? What the hell's a luxury tax? Does anyone know what a luxury tax is? The
Speaking
tax
of
on
Monopoly,
my china, my fine china.
Did
Did
you
you listen to Monopoly Cast?
I mean,
I like the little top hat.
yeah,
You
that's a
gotta-
good one. Or I kind of went with a car. What did you go with, Bobby?
No, the thimble.
That's the worst one. What
No,
are you?
best one.
You're the old maid of the group.
Best one. It's the best one.
That's
It's
the only the one.
indestructible. It's indestructible. How do you?
This
You
is
can't do anything to a
nonsense.
thimble.
This is. I don't know. I don't even know you anymore. The thimble.
The top hat, you can crush a top hat. You can't.
Oh, if you wear the
thimbles-
thimble, then they can't give you a vaccine. That keeps you
Thimble.
protected from vaccines.
Yeah.
That's
thimble,
like
you
a thing.
can't do anything. Put that thimble anywhere. So, what were we talking about? I don't
You
Well,
said
the whole
speaking
point
of
of Monopoly.
Monopoly-
We were talking about the point of
Oh,
Monopoly.
speaking of
which is-
Monopoly,
I learned
did you-
the point of Monopoly was just buy literally everything you ever get on. If you buy every property you ever get on, you just win the game
Yeah,
eventually.
that's
Manifest
you gotta
Destiny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you watch a Monopoly commercial I sent you?
No.
Man, Lucas, I'm gonna send you a Monopoly.
It was like
commercial.
4 minutes long. I didn't care
It's
about the
4
payoff.
minutes long, and they only mention Monopoly in the last 3 seconds of it. The rest of it just seems like I don't know. It's like a women's rights commercial.
Is it meant to be satirical or no?
I don't know what it's
probably
meant to be, but it's very confusing because you're watching it, and then at the end they just spring a Monopoly board on you. It's very weird. Anyways, luxury tax, MLB. I don't know how it's going to go over. I think so if you were going to add something to that, you two guys specifically, what would you add into the MLB season that
I'd make them all wear thimbles every
Wow.
inning of every
Only-
game. They're just
only
running
the-
around trying to on every finger. They're trying to catch
Only-
balls with
only the bat boy?
nickel. Yeah.
No, Dan, I think this is the perfect time to implement your like the bonus balls. You know, where you get
Two
like
strikes.
Really
with one
spruce baseball up.
there's like you get like each team gets basically like a case of specialty baseballs that have different rules. So like getting it out with this baseball gets you 2 outs or whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's a great time.
You always take that ball in when the worst hitter on the team comes up.
Right.
So
Well,
he
just
is-
That's why
like
you have to use them strategically.
Right.
yeah. So like, it's I don't know, 2-0 count and bases are juiced and you have a ball that says if this next pitch is a strike, the inning's over.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's got to be a called strike. Can't be a swinging strike.
No, it can be any strike, but that's just like it's just tough.
Or a ball
Yeah.
that like as an offensive team, you say, or maybe you have a bat in that case, and the result of this at bat is +2 bases. So if you strike out, it's a double.
Interesting.
If
Mhm.
you hit a home run, it's a home run and a double.
You always give that bat to the worst guy on the team.
Of course.
He's always going to get on base. So how about I always think this is a good idea personally, but the mandatory Sunday doubleheader, Monday day off situation, like to
Why? It's still
I
just
don't
2
know.
games in 2 days.
I know, but I feel
doubleheaders
you know,
are the worst.
well, doubleheaders are the worst for
And day games are the worst. That's like combining all the worst things.
and this is why we're making the change. We want it. You make players miserable Sunday, happy Monday. This is a good trade-off. But
Monday's
doubleheader,
serious.
I want doubleheaders on Sunday and Monday day off because you guys know. I mean, there's no days off in pro ball. Like there are really no days off. I'd rather tough it out for a doubleheader on a Sunday to get myself an actual day off every week.
I mean, I never really cared that much about days off, to be honest.
because you're a
with you.
pitcher. You every day's
know.
a day off.
Yeah, I throw for 5 minutes every 72 hours. Like it's stupid.
Plus the Ernie Banks, like let's.
Oh
play
yeah,
two.
Ernie Banks is always front of mind on.
And
on off
it
days.
also has
He
maybe
should
What did
be.
that mean? Let's
Ernie
talk about this
Banks.
non sequitur. What did Ernie Banks have to do with any of this?
Ernie Banks.
Oh,
he's on
let's play two. Oh, let's
Yeah.
play two. Yeah, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's that's crackpot
Ernie.
wisdom. That's
get a
crackpot
day off
wisdom.
on Monday. Ernie Banks. Third thing.
This is going great.
There might be broadcast implications for that too, because Sunday's like a nothing day.
Oh,
Sure, the
and
MLB
that's another totally like guys need to be mic'd up every game. Like
I agree
Yes.
with that. I think that's
That
really
needs-
fun. The
need to be
problem is
mic'd
you're
up.
going to hear lots of the F word.
yeah,
and lots
hey,
of
but
other words.
here's my thing with that. if you want to hear it unfiltered, then you got to subscribe to MLB TV to get more people to like watch games.
I mean, I think that's a great idea. I mean, for all the crackpot ideas you have, that's a good one. I would pay extra to hear everyone mic'd up. Just hearing everyone just call each other pansies. Obviously, I'm not going to use the other word at the moment.
Do you think that they would? I mean, the MLB or the owners would, or teams would want certain like dark zones. I'm assuming, right?
It would be a huge problem.
Well,
There's no way you want your favorite stars
deaf,
hearing what they're saying.
Silent in the dugout, like you only hear them when they're on the playing field.
The problem is over time, some period of time, they're going to forget that they're wearing it, which is what you essentially want. But then you're going to be like, "F that mother." I mean, it's going to be real, and people are not going to like it. It's not going to be good. I'm just imagining
in my head,
it's not going to be good.
An Astros player in the dugout being like, "Hey, can you bang louder on that trash can? I can't hear it when I'm out there."
Or like they're talking about like somebody in the stands, or just totally not baseball related.
You don't want any of that.
Yes, you do. I mean, this is the content we want.
Yeah, but then there's no safe zones. I mean, like, this is competition. This is a high testosterone sports match going on.
But
amongst men who hate each other sometimes.
But here we go. Like, put some rules in. You know, you're only micing up one guy per team or something like that. You know, same guy can't be mic'd up every game. You know who's mic'd up. So there's ways to get around it. Like, I want like the oldest bench coach to be mic'd up all the time. Like, I want to like who's
just a
Tommy
constant
Lasorda,
stream of just nonsense and back in my day.
Old man.
I will say that when they mic'd up spring training, I haven't been that entertained by baseball in years.
It was fun. Like, it was like a good back and forth.
Well, Lucas, do you understand? So, like, some of the stuff that guy John Boy does, how he like gets those streams and then he publishes them. Do you understand that?
No, and I don't know.
How does he get access? It's like he's breaking in. Like the way it was worded, it's almost like he's like, it's a publicly available thing or something, and he's like getting into the audio streams and like taking data out and using it, which is I just don't understand that phenomenon. I don't know if
isn't he just watching and voicing over?
Aaron,
he gets like audio files that aren't on the broadcast.
Yeah. Like Aaron, like you remember that Aaron Boone thing where he was like, "Our guys are effing savages," blah, blah, blah. That was never broadcast, but he was mic'd up. So like that audio went somewhere into some room, and he like put on his hat and his like black gloves and like did like the Mission Impossible thing and like got into the, I don't know. Like, yeah, I was curious if you knew what the logistics of that, what that even means.
Well, and then what I don't understand is, okay, let's say he gets it. How does he not face any sort of like ramification from whomever?
I wonder that too, because like I illegally went to a game and got photos and videos, and which is like expressly prohibited. Even if it's your own camera in a game, you're not allowed to take video of a major league game. You can take photos for personal use. You're not allowed to take any footage of game like when the game's being played.
Did they let you bring in your camera?
Yeah, you can bring in a camera. They just like if they saw me taking video, like if I was just sitting there recording, like they could potentially come and kick me out. But even then I'm like nervous about using that footage because it has major league players in it and they have an interest in their image and whatever, and B, like major league prohibits that. Like I'm not allowed to have that footage. But then for other people on YouTube to just like basically just chop up major league games and throw them on there seems like there's not really many ramifications. And then what he's doing seems like way even worse. Like we didn't like, hey, that's Major League Baseball's audio. We didn't let you do that and you did it. Like, how is he not? Maybe he is in litigation. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are in litigation for random stuff behind the scenes that you never know about, but that seems problematic for sure.
Yeah.
I just think miking up like players, like it would fill a lot of that dead time when you talk about pace of play. Like a baseball game is not necessarily any longer than a football game, but there's a lot more action happening in football. And when there's not action, they're talking about action. Whereas like these two guys that are sitting there can't see action, like Action Sports Network. Like baseball game, when you're watching it, it's like, it feels like there's dead air all the time. Like, and the two guys,
baseball's a really boring sport. It's super boring.
There's no
like
Harry
cricket.
Carey's like off the cuff remarks where you're you're listening for him to say something stupid. as
I almost
opposed to,
we have a president that does that though.
I would do that. Like, let me announce a game. We're gonna do
And,
that.
like,
We're gonna watch a KBO game.
one of the
Yeah, I do
best
want to do that.
innovations of the last, like, I don't know, 5-6 years was the MLB condensed game the following day.
Yes, awesome.
No broadcast, 25 minutes long, with all the breakages cut out. Oh, those are great.
It's just the pitches, right? It's just every pitch, like
Yeah.
whatever.
Is it every pitch or is it only the ones that are put in play? I can't remember.
I think it's every pitch, although I can't remember now.
There's probably both options, I would think.
There might
if
be.
it's just pitches put
I
in
think
play.
it's only ones that were put in play because I
Or
watched
maybe
some
results.
looking for footage. Yeah, I don't think they're showing like a 2-1 fastball out of the zone. I think they kind of just like, but I can't
Even
remember.
better.
Don't quote me on it. Well,
better.
then you start to lose. Then you start to lose some of the baseballness because if you
But
like,
if you're like a reporter or something,
oh
like
yeah,
if you cover the
there's
sport,
uses for it for sure. But
Because the other thing is, like, Bobby, like you were saying, the current state of broadcast now is what gets said often in between pitches is even worse than dead air. Like, if it was
it's
complete
brutal.
silence, I would be fine. But they try to fill it with random nonsense.
it's brutal. Like
Well,
the
I do
Sunday
wanna
night
do that.
baseball. Sunday night
Yeah.
baseball games are terrible to watch.
Not good.
you know what I miss? Because I think it was like a Red Sox replay or something. I saw a clip and it was John Miller. I miss John Miller calling games. There's
Yeah.
just like this warm, fuzzy feeling. Just like he called so many of those important games, like for 20 years of my childhood, or just not even just childhood, but like a huge chunk of all of our lives. And they're just like, I was like a comfort hearing his voice. I'm like, man, I miss those days.
Yeah,
I
he
have
was
that
good.
same feeling with like the old Cubs announcers, and I can't tell if that's because they were objectively better or if my nostalgia is just like flooding my brain with hormones.
Well, I think when you watch an old Cubs game or even like an old White Sox game or recent White Sox game with Hawk Harrelson, half of it is because those guys are such homers. Like, they're not
Right.
unbiased. They're totally biased. Like, they
Yeah,
want
they don't
the
care
team.
at all about objectivity.
Yeah, like Hawk Harrelson is rooting for the White Sox openly, blatantly. Like, obviously he's the White Sox announcer, but you know, on a national broadcast, he doesn't care. Like, he's not seeing both sides. If they're playing the Indians, like, he hates the Indians, which is
right.
which is awesome. I would like to see some kind of changes in all these booths with keep the play-by-play guy, the boring guy, and put an entertainer. Give me a comedian. Like, give me a comedian to do the color. He doesn't even need to know anything about baseball. Just let him comment on what he's seeing. Like, make it somewhat entertaining. It can't be any worse than A-Rod and Jessica Mendoza and whoever else is doing Sunday night. Like,
remember when the NFL did that with Dennis Miller?
Yeah, but Dennis Miller's just not funny.
Well, he's not. But I feel like they kind of had that idea.
And I think he tried he didn't do it as himself. I felt like he did it as like he tried to be a football announcer. Like, just be yourself, man. Yeah,
he tried to do football stuff.
Like, give me Bill Burr watching a
Yes.
Red Sox game. Like, that is going to be entertaining for a couple hours.
Yeah, I do want to do the hot mic idea. So for those of you listening, I threw out the idea to Bobby and a couple other people of watching some KBO games and just like doing like a watch party. I wish you could stream the game so you could like see us picture in picture. I don't know. Again, I'm like nervous of the legality. Like, we could watch it on my computer and screen share the game and all like be on Zoom and comment over it.
Right.
Which would be the ideal situation, but I don't want to have legal problems personally. But we could also just stream during a KBO game. Say, hey, turn on your TV. It's on our TV. And we could just talk nonsense. And I think that'd be super fun. So we're kind of tentatively planning that. I just need to figure it out.
I think it'd be fun. I think Morning Brushback could be the official provider of KBO games in the U.S.
Well, and the funny thing is, I'm gonna have to fill time because I care like so little about that. Like, I don't even like.
But that's the best part. That's the best part.
Does anyone, Lucas? How do you feel about KBO? Do you care? What's your percentage on a 13 to 76 scale? How much do you care about KBO games?
14.
See, 14. Classic.
But how much do you care if you put $50 on the game?
Okay.
Yeah,
76.
Yeah.
So there's the caveat. You should be able to
that's the instant care button.
Yes.
It reminds me again of, I mean, we talked a bunch about The Simpsons recently, but the episode where the soccer team comes to play in Springfield, And Homer's like, "Oh, soccer, boring." And they're doing the advertisements like, "Oh, your favorite stars: Caluglia, Muchlia, Isla, Paniagua 2." And he's like, "Oh." Same thing. It's like you don't know who any of these people are. They just need to build hype. But Lucas, how do you feel about outdoor use of coronavirus masks? This is a hot button issue in my household of one person.
This is now we're getting into controversy.
Yes.
So
let's hear it.
For those of you who don't know, I live in central Illinois where population density is pretty low. Actually, it's funny that you mentioned Bill Burr. The segues in this podcast are just fantastic. While you're talking about Bill Burr, in his more recent podcasts has kind of been on a soapbox about people wearing masks when they go on runs, when they go outside for walks, which I don't fully understand, if I'm being honest.
No, I don't either. I don't.
Because it's entirely possible, and in fact, where I am, very, very likely that when I go out for runs, I don't come within, I'm not even close to people. And so I am confused of mask wearing in outdoors, I guess.
Can we talk
about... Like you're in a populated area, then I guess that makes a little more sense, but...
All right, so let's put aside whether or not the mask actually works, like, for whatever. Why are you wearing a mask when you're driving in your car by yourself?
That's one thing I do see a lot.
I'm driving past people and they've got the mask on.
Self-infection rates are soaring.
What's happening? Like, is your steering wheel giving it off and you need to, like... I don't know what's happening.
It's in the atmosphere. It goes through your grill into your air conditioning.
We live in a crazy world.
It's pumping out of the exhaust.
Yeah, you get a car to car.
No, they're dropping it in chemtrails. Coronavirus is in the air.
It's like those old Chevron commercials with the car where he's like getting the bad gasoline. He's like, and then you give him the good Chevron gas, and the car's just going down the street, just pumping out coronavirus.
One of my favorite conspiracy theories, by the way, is that the NFL created coronavirus to kill the XFL.
Hey, I like that one. I don't know how truthful it is, but I like it.
It's pretty good, pretty creative.
It's very creative.
No one cares enough about the XFL to need to do that.
That's what they want you to think. The XFL was getting hot. All right, it was getting some steam.
You know what made XFL fun? Gambling.
And a complete lack of caring about any, like, they didn't care about anything.
The XFL had the right approach to football. Look, we know it's dangerous. We're not pretending it's not dangerous. Let's just make it super dangerous.
They tried to make it a real life version of NFL Blitz.
Yes.
Which was the best thing they could have done.
But everybody knows football is dangerous. Like, when you're running full speed with a concrete helmet on at somebody and tackling them with only your neck.
Concrete helmet? Where do they have these helmets?
Those helmets are concrete.
That seems like a difficult way to keep your head.
That was actually
like bobbleheads. You have to commit. If you're going to start to go left, you're never going to recover. You just got to keep tackling left.
You know what was good about XFL? Like, the one rule that was interesting was their kickoff rule, where they started like 10 yards apart from each other and not next to the ball. You know, do you remember that rule?
Yeah.
I didn't watch any of this.
To reduce the amount of steam that you build up.
So they're not. So there's not 11 guys running full speed at 11 stationary guys.
Right.
It was interesting. I mean, you know what? The NFL needs some kind of competition. Like, why don't they have any competition? There's plenty of football players. Look at the NCAA.
Not.
Yeah, there is.
No,
Lucas
like, just because he's big. Lucas is 6. What are you, 6? You're 6'3". What are you today? 230, 40?
235.
Fantastic middle linebacker.
So he's large enough, but I mean, that's getting back to, like, that's the saying, like, well, we could have another Major League Baseball. Like, there aren't more than, like, some of the major leaguers in the major leagues at any given moment aren't really major leaguers. You know what I mean? Like, you know that.
Sure,
like,
but are we
there's
talking...
there's not more pro baseball players. You just end up watering it down.
But are we talking quality or just alternative? Like, I'm just talking alternative, you know? Like, there's no alternative.
Well, yeah, clearly we're talking quality. Like, a Major League Baseball player is a type of quality, and like NFL is a type of quality. And it's not really competition to them if it's a lesser brand of football. Like, people aren't just they're just not gonna care.
Maybe not. It's like, but XFL had some people caring.
Probably just because it was regional. and it was like a spectacle
Yeah.
for a minute. But after a while, you're like, I don't have an allegiance to that team. I mean, the wearing their shirt is such a big deal in sports. I don't know.
I'd still prefer something like, it was nice that the XFL was in it. Like, it didn't compete head to head with the NFL for ratings because they were two different separate seasons. So
Because
like,
they
if you're
sucked
someone,
by
but if you're
comparison.
someone that likes football just in general, or someone that wants to gamble in general, like that's a 3-month window where you get extra football.
How much of your life would you say revolves around gambling right now?
60 right now, like nothing. No, it's just terrible. But like 70%.
We can start I'll get the domain name. We call it everydaybets.com.
Like
and we can basically pay just like some random people around the country, say, hey, for this week, I want you to record how many cups of coffee you drink, how many times you open the refrigerator door, how many times, whatever it is. And so they just record these things, and they don't know why they're doing it. So it's on, and then other people are betting on how many times Felicia Jackson in Boston, Massachusetts opened her refrigerator door up in a given week.
The over-under
set at 165.
Yeah. Over.
I take the under. Felicia, she's on a diet. She's not. Yeah,
she
but
eats
like
out too much.
You like start calling her neighbors. Hey, what's her dietary habits? Is she trying to lose weight? Is she gaining weight? Is she a big like, if you eat more natural foods, like doesn't require refrigeration. Like if she's reaching for an apple, it's not in the refrigerator, or is she always going for the?
Yeah, I got a tip that Felicia's a really big potato chip person. You're in potato chips, you're not getting in that fridge.
She only eats out of the pantry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it could be, it actually probably could be a really funny thing. I would do that.
People are doing that on Facebook.
Random pool of people.
People are doing that on Facebook. Have you guys
buying
seen this?
into someone's life? No.
They're like live streaming Facebook stuff, and
I never want to go on Facebook ever again. It's a trash company run by a trash CEO. I can't say enough bad things about Facebook.
Interesting. You don't like Zuckerberg. I don't like him either, but I'm happy.
Does anyone? Does anyone?
He's the Bill Gates of social media.
Social median.
Social media.
Sound it out.
Social media.
But yeah, so Lucas, like even here in DC where it's much more popular, like if I'm going for a run, I will have to run by a person on the sidewalk. Even then, I'm not running by that many people. Like, and it's kind of wild, the lengths. Like yesterday I was walking and I was on a normal, like kind of narrow sidewalk, and a couple, and I think they had maybe a 4-year-old. They were on the rollerblades. And they like made such an effort to like rollerblade into the street off this like kind of bumpy sidewalk.
Rollerblade into oncoming traffic.
Yeah, and they both had masks on. I didn't have a mask, so I was like poisonous, I guess. But I was just like, you both have masks on. Like once you have a mask on, then how much do you have to go out of your way to like not have just a quick passing?
Like, I don't know. Like obviously, then you should be fine, right? Like
it's just such an interesting thing, like the level of fear in people. Like you see a girl running down the street randomly with no one around her wearing a mask, you're like, what are you doing? And you're like on a bike, you're on a bike with a mask on. Like
if you're that nervous,
like what,
if you're that nervous,
someone gonna be like,
like you probably shouldn't be going out in public for like leisure to begin with, I would think, right? Like if you're that scared that the mask isn't going to protect you and you have to cross the other side of the street, maybe that's a good point.
Local. Like what every individual's acceptance of risk is, and then to say that like mask versus no mask when you're going out on the run is like that big of a risk differential. It's like I mean,
I'm walking outside hugging strangers. I'm actively trying to make contact with people.
Right.
Not true, but
yeah.
Bobby's opened up a handshaking station.
Yeah, like a kissing booth.
Yeah. I will tell you that where I am, no one wears masks when they run.
Good.
You know what's interesting is my buddy lives in San Diego, and I was on his birthday. I talked to him for about an hour yesterday, and he said same thing. Like people aren't wearing masks and they're not on lockdown. And California is an interesting state because it seems like they're very hardcore. Like they're very under strict guidelines from their governor. And he said it's not like that in San Diego. And San Diego's a big town. I mean, it's pretty big city. I think it was just weird to hear him. I would have thought that California 100%, like just everything you see about California is that masks, keep your distance. But he said, no, he's like, nobody wears masks when they go in and out of stores. And He's like, it's pretty lax.
I mean, and for those of you listening, don't get me wrong. I'm not blasé about this whole thing. Like, I've taken it very seriously. I've been very quarantined. I've ordered groceries to minimize contact with like even the grocery store, like whatever. I wear a mask. In DC, you have to wear a mask indoors. So you can't go in a place. They won't let you. They have a security guard that won't let you in.
Yeah.
Which I've seen people like boycotting Costco because that's like, look, like we're in closer quarters inside. It's fine. It's not a big nuisance. Like whatever. I'll wear a mask. Totally. Like that's okay. I have obviously my dad's in his 70s. So like I have the same concerns as everyone else. I'm not blasé about it, but I'm just not wearing a mask when I'm going on a run. And I'm not when I'm on a walk and I'm walking every day. I'm not wearing a mask. And if I like need to go, I bring one. If I need to be in close quarters, I'll put it on. But there's just like, we're outside. If everyone was getting it from just walking around, everyone in America would have it already. Like it would be out of control, like absolutely out of control. And it's just not that way. I mean, in DC, right. It's still really, DC is, I think we have like 6,000 cases and we have like a 750,000 population in the center of the city. And in the wards, like the three more like affluent wards, which includes like the White House area, like the Georgetown area, and then like the area that I'm in, the prevalence, it's like only 12% of cases are in those three wards, which makes up 37% of the city. So it's like where people are more spread out and are active and like staying in their homes, they're not getting it that much. And it's partly because of the precautions, but it's also just because it's like, if it was getting spread by running, I would have had it already. For sure I would have. Because I've been running around, and you can't run for 30 minutes and not pass 10, 15 people, even when the streets are sparsely populated, which they are. And I still avoid people, but it's just like, I don't know. It's interesting. And again, I'm not blasé about it. Like, I want to protect other people and their parents, and I want my parents to be protected, but there's just like a level of like, look, that's just like you said, Lucas, he's just like, what is the risk here? And does the mask really change this like infinitesimal risk level?
Right. If it comes to the point that like I'm required to wear a mask when I go running, I think I'll just like stop running like that. I don't know.
Treadmill sales through the roof.
You won't feel in charge.
Yeah. Breathing my humid sweat air. No, thank you.
Yeah. So let's transition. So let's talk about the baseball tournament situation in America. Bobby, how do you say the word tournament, by the way?
Tournament. T-U-R-N.
Tournament.
Tournament. Eat it. Deal with it. So I am starting a personal crusade, which is let tournaments go bankrupt. This system has been busted for a long time. Teams have to pay $1,200 to $1,500 for a weekend tournament. Then really they charge you.
For someone who maybe isn't a veteran of the baseball tournament scenario, let's break down what the process is for a team.
Okay, Bobby, why don't you go? You know this better than either of us. We ran an academy together, but I mean, you're a saltier veteran than us.
So if you have a youth travel baseball team or even whatever, just a baseball team, any 18 and under, you enter these tournaments, you pay anywhere from, let's call it $900 a weekend to as much as $2,500 a weekend. You get guaranteed.
What's the median? Probably $1,200.
Yeah, probably about $1,200 a weekend. Okay. They guarantee you 4 games, 3 to 4 games, usually 4 games. Mm-hmm. But if you play 2 games, then that is considered your tournament. So weather conditions, rain, whatever, whatever happens at a tournament, if you've played 2 games, your money is kept. Like, they keep all your money. Okay. You play 1 game, they give you half back, whatever, prorated. So these tournaments have a what you would consider a monopoly. I mean, it's partially smoke and mirrors, right? Like, tournaments advertise recruiting, they advertise, exposure, but there's no tournaments that are guaranteeing any college coaches to show up or any level of, they can say they're a very elite tournament or, the best teams but you don't know until you get there. So
let's break down costs a little more. So most tournaments now have a gate fee, which is $30 to $50 for a weekend, which means your parents have to pay this gate fee to come watch their kid that they pay to be on this team who paid their tournament fee.
Yes,
so
100%.
On top of the tournament fee, there's a gate fee. And then obviously there's the expense of being in a hotel for 2 to 3 nights with your family.
Which is a stay to play situation, which for anybody listening, that means the tournament company mandates you book with our hotels. Yep. We're going to get a kickback from that hotel. If you don't book with our hotels, you pay an extra fee
like
Usually
$500 or
something
or more.
to $300 to $500 per tournament.
Yeah. So then there's that. Then obviously all the meals away from home, gas, transportation, whatever. So what would you guys estimate it costs a typical family to go to a tournament where they have to stay for 2 nights? Let's say, what do you think, Lucas? What do you think the estimate would be? I mean, the kids' share is probably, of the tournament fee, the kids' share is probably $75. If you have like a roster like 16 kids, $1,200. Like, let's say it's $75 at the share for the tournament, and then the gate fee. So they're at like $100 for the family.
Right.
What else?
Well, and before I answer that, like the other thing for I don't know, parents don't know the behind the scenes. If you're a travel baseball team looking to play a summer season, your only options are tournaments, basically. So like back in January of before the summer, you have to hop into these tournaments because they fill up. So like the coaches scheduling in December, January, February, maybe even as early as November, because otherwise, if you're not in tournaments and if you're not in air quote high quality tournaments, then your summer is like you're going to be playing who knows who. So that's the other thing to consider. And it does seem like the tournaments get more expensive every year. I feel like our first year with our travel organization, we could get into tournaments for like $900 to $1,100. And then the last couple of years, it felt like $1,300, $1,400 to get in some of like the bigger tournaments. But yeah. So then in the hotels, I don't really remember too many weekends where there was a hotel rate under like $130 a night.
That's about normal. Yeah.
And
then
the family does
what Dan said. If you're a high school travel team, most likely your coach and your assistant coach are paid for. Their hotel needs to be paid for. Their food needs to be paid for. That kind of comes out of the team, the team fund. That they're not coming out of pocket. It's kind of a thankless job to coach. For youth.
Yeah. And so then go ahead.
Well, that's another thing I was going to say is there is a desire from a lot of parents to have non-parent coaches. Non-parent coaches are expensive for that reason.
Right.
And it's like you have to basically pay a qualified coach enough to convince them to sacrifice 6 out of the 7 weekends in their summer and, live out of a hotel.
And for those of you that are not aware, there's only like 8 decent weekends in the Midwest in the summer. So to give them all up to coach youth baseball is an actual sacrifice for a lot of guys. That's why it's hard to find good coaches.
Yeah. And you just can't pay them enough to where, like, if you start to break down the hours because you're driving, you're staying, like you're constantly planning, like there's just not a lot of the downtime, which, again, like when you love the game and you like working with kids, like, it's still like, I always enjoyed it. I know Lucas always enjoyed it. I know you still enjoy it, but it is like, at some point you're like, man, I'd really like to go to a concert this weekend or just like, like travel, like do some things. And you just like kind of can't. So it's tough. And you see a lot of coach turnover, but anyway, so like after a given summer of doing maybe 4, 5, 6 tournaments on the road, you end up spending multiple thousands of dollars for every family. And the quality of baseball. And this is my thing is, I always laughed at my team when they'd be like, Dan, who we playing today? I'm like, another group of 16-year-olds you've never heard of that are just like you. Like, what do you want me to tell you? Like, it's not like I can tell them like some brand name team. There's a couple brand name teams like the Evo Shield Canes. They're like a national level program. Like people have heard of them where if you saw them on your schedule, you'd be like, oh, we're playing the Canes. That's very few and far between. Most of the teams are just unknown groups of 16-year-olds that are comparable from another town. So it's like, why are we driving 8 hours to play the same group of 16-year-olds that we could play in our own town, or we could pay 2 umpires $50 each, rent a field for $50, split the cost between the other team, and now it's $75 per team per game instead of, we'd have to break down the cost per team per game in the tournaments, but it's like $300 a game, So
go ahead, Lucas.
Well, that was the other thing is that I know we've bounced around a little bit, but the other thing about this format is, like Bobby, we were saying, all right, you get a 4-game guarantee, but Dan, to your point, who you're playing is randomized allegedly and completely unknown to you. So what is entirely possible is that you go 0-4, you get your butt kicked in all 4 games, then you go home and you don't play on Sunday. Where now parents who had booked a Saturday night hotel room are either eating that or you're like staying until, I don't know, to do whatever there is to do on the city that you're in on that Sunday.
which is
Yeah.
nothing
So, like,
usually.
the scheduling can be tough in terms of, like Bobby was saying, weather, but then also you might go 4-0 and have 2 10-run games, or go 0-4 and not be able to play all your guys. Like it's
Yeah,
it's a
rough.
crapshoot.
The format is just the selling point for a lot of these tournaments is recruiting, right? Like be seen, be exposure,
which is negligible.
Which you don't know who's showing up. Like I've got a lot of friends that coach college baseball. We all know college baseball coaches. Like these guys have a limited amount of time, and it's not like they're posted up at one field for 4 straight days watching every game. Like
they don't look for random kids. No, they don't.
Do not look for random kids. So parents are like, well, are these good tournaments? Are we going to be seen in these tournaments? Like, look, the scene part is done by you on the side. Like, send your video out, get in contact with coaches. Hopefully when you send them their schedule, they'll come and watch you, or if they're going to be at a tournament, they'll watch you. But nobody's watching random like games hoping to find a player. Like, it's just not feasible for these coaches anymore.
Yeah, it's not time efficient. Yeah, and that's an eye opener. I remember I called Liam Bowen, who we had on the show at UMBC, who does a great job recruiting and a great guy, very objective. I'm like, hey, I have a couple players that you might be interested. Are you going to be in our area, or like we'll be here? He's like, I'm like, when? And I asked him just in general, I'm like, we're going to email a lot of college coaches to tell them where our team's going to be and who we have. When do I need to do that so I'm on their schedule? And he's like, probably in either the very end of the year, like before the next summer. So if you're playing in 2020 before 2019 ends, or in the very early part of like January. He's like, because we set our schedules. He's like, I know I've got to be very time efficient with my recruiting schedule. I got to know where I'm going and why I'm going there. He's
Right.
like, so if you spring it on me in May, hey, we got a really good kid who's going to be in Indianapolis. Like, my summer's booked. I know where I'm going. I've got teams. They do have some teams they'll follow because maybe they know there's 3 or 4 kids on there that are really legit. And there's some big tournaments that maybe they can hit like 8 teams with a bunch of different kids all in the same complex. And if you're not in that complex, they're just like, sorry, like you're not on our schedule. So you have to be on their schedule early. And yeah. And I mean, Lucas, how many times did you go, we didn't see scouts just lingering around except at 17U tournaments and
Right.
some of the better ones.
Yeah. And even then you're like, from their perspective, if there's 95 teams or 96 teams in a tournament, they're not going to the Wednesday night, Thursday morning games. Like there's just, so you didn't see them until you're making it to Sunday anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Well, even to your point, I know a lot of coaches now won't even stay on Sunday. Like they'll just go Thursday, Friday, Saturday and see who they want to see and then get out of there. Like they're not going to, like the good games don't matter. Like they're not trying to watch matchups. If they need to see an arm throw, they'll watch them throw against the worst team in the tournament, as long as it fits their schedule. Like,
right.
Yeah.
The recruiting aspect has gotten so fluid with, information that they don't like the hitting guy or the recruiting guy at Northern Illinois doesn't need to come watch me play 4 or 5 times to get a read on me. Like he's got an idea of whether or not he likes me. He just needs to see one game, sees a few at bats, and then he's bounced. He's out of there.
So what's funny about all of this is it is very much a selling point for the tournaments to say, look at all of these coaches that we have in attendance, which is completely opposite to how recruiters actually function.
Yeah, it's misleading.
It's like,
for sure.
like you guys are saying, if they have somebody in their head that they want to see, they don't care where, they just need to see them play.
Right.
It's not
and
like
it's some of these big tournaments. So the big complex in the Midwest is in Indiana. There's 200 acres of athletic fields, not all baseball, but whatever. There's 200 acres. You get into that tournament, and that tournament has gotten so big and so many teams, and it's such a moneymaker that you might only play 2 of your 5 scheduled games at that complex. And then you get 3 games at local high schools. And for everyone watching, those local high schools are not drawing anybody to watch. Like if you're going to a tournament that's got multiple, couple dozen teams or more, and there's a local, a quad or 2 quads or local fields, that's where everybody's hanging out. So you want to be at those local fields, the 4 fields in a circle, so coaches can watch, 4 games at a time. And everybody wants to go to these big tournaments, and nobody wants to do quote unquote round robin of 1 field and 6 teams because no coaches are going to be there. But look, the point of summer baseball is not necessarily to be where all the schools are at. Like, you need to get better. So, we're trying to get better. We're trying to get you seen. But at the end of the day, I mean, if you've got a phone, you've got recruiting tools at your disposal.
Well, and just think of what the implication is it's saying that, okay, if we were to ride this idea of, all right, we get exposure at these college tournaments, that's saying that you as a player are going to go to this tournament with 60 some teams and play so well that a college coach is going to see you over the literally hundreds of guys that he's seen and gone, ooh, I need that guy. It's just like an unrealistic.
Unless you're a pitcher, the chances of sticking out are very minuscule. Like,
well, and as a pitcher,
impossible.
if you throw a phenomenal game, who saw it? And now you're down. Now you're down for the weekend. Like if you're a shortstop and someone's watching a pitcher, and like say I'm a coach and I go watch. I know I got a beat on a kid. And I'm watching him pitch, and he's playing some unknown team, but their shortstop, wow, is like impressing me. Okay, like that's how kids get found too. Like, I mean, just so that's a very, very real thing. But if you're a pitcher, you got one shot. I mean, you like spend your payload, right? And if no one watched you that game, like, all right, that was it. So good job. But I mean, and to be fair, well, I'll share one more like horror story. So we booked a tournament that was last year. That was it was supposed to be on the Ohio State field. Like they advertised it as the Ohio State Invitational, and some teams had, and we were a little late entry, so we weren't guaranteed a game on that field, but that field was used in the tournament. It was like clear. And then months later, suddenly it was called like some random high school invitational. I'm like, oh, what is all this then? And I emailed the guy. I'm like, hey, what's the deal with this? He's like, yeah, we can't use Ohio. I'm like, when were you going to tell me that? He's like, well, it doesn't matter because you weren't guaranteed a game. I'm like, when were you going to tell me that, you snake? Like, this does matter. We're not driving 8 hours to play on some random high school's field exclusively for 8. Right. Yeah, like, screw you. Like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, you weren't guaranteed a game. It doesn't matter. And I'm like, it does matter. Like, and I get that's part of the allure of the summer schedule. And one of the organizations that we always had a great, and again, like, the organization in Indianapolis, Bullpen, I think they've done a really good job. Their complex is really nice. I had nothing bad to say about Bullpen tournaments. Sometimes you do get stuck off their big complex. I think the tournament format is broken in general, but like they did a good job. We had a good experience there. We also had a good experience at the Cincy Flames tournaments. Always played on college fields, almost exclusively. If it wasn't a college field, it was a really nice high school field. The guy Jay, who I think he sold the Flames, but he was always like a super guy. So understand this is not like everyone's a snake in the industry, because they're certainly not. Like in this situation, it was like super deceptive. And it's like, we just didn't go. We just ate the $1,000 and went to a different tournament and saved all that money traveling.
Yeah. But I don't know if it's deception. I'm sorry, Lucas. I was saying,
that was deception for sure.
I was saying, I don't know if like, it's not to say that any of these tournament companies do a bad job. It's just the format is.
Well, some of them do for sure. Some of them do for sure.
For the most part, the format in general, like, I don't know if anybody's got the right format yet.
It's not this.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say, that it does seem to be more often than not just sort of a problem inherent in the system. And it does seem to me, and Bobby, you would know best probably, that at least over the last 6 or 7 years, there's been like a slow escalation of these tournaments to where like some of them are so big now that, like the Dan's point, you get 1 or 2 games on the feature field if you're lucky. And then the other thing is just like the dilution of, even if there are coaches there, the fact that we played in tournaments where there's 90 some teams, and it's just like, ugh,
it's just so big. Like, so the way I try and do it is you try and couple your trips with like the best quality tournament / venue, and also, semi-vacation spot. Like, I send a lot of our teams to Music City tournament, which is Nashville and surrounding Nashville area. Like, that is for all intents purposes a vacation. Nashville's a destination city. Indianapolis, while
hot
not
chicken, sweat a bunch, like maybe get heat stroke. Nashville's lovely in August.
Get a little live music, that was
one of the dumbest decisions I ever made, was to wait in line for an hour on a 99-degree day in August, or no, it was in July. outside of Hattie B's in Nashville to get hot chicken. And when I got inside, it was like 94 degrees inside the restaurant. And then
That's
I was
how you
eating
know
hot
it's
chicken.
hot.
I'm like, it's so hot. It's so hot. It was like the worst experience of my life. And it wasn't like, it was
hot
good,
chicken,
but
man.
it wasn't. Yeah. Well, I'm dumb. But
like, so Indianapolis has the big complex, just north of Indianapolis, 20 minutes or so.
at Westfield, yeah.
Great. I wouldn't call
facility.
Indianapolis a vacation or destination city by any regards, but it's still a bigger city. Like, there's things to do for families.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa, Cedar Rapids has a big complex, not necessarily a destination city where people would go vacation. So it's hard. Cincy Flames, again, Cincinnati's a big city, but I don't know how many people are taking summer vacations there if they're not doing baseball. So it's hard to balance where you send people, and especially right now. So, Lucas, we're in Illinois. Illinois has got much stricter guidelines for everything that's going on than Indiana, Iowa, Missouri. So all of my parents are asking, are we going to go to Indiana and play? Are we going to go to, are we going to get out of state? And you're trying to balance, at least myself, is who's got the money to stay in hotels every other weekend or every weekend. It's without being ignorant to everyone's situation. I want to play baseball, but I don't know if I want to make somebody go to, in an hour and a half away where it's too far to commute back and forth. But the hotel is, like Lucas said, is $140, $150 a night. I mean, some people aren't working. Like, I don't know everybody's personal situation. And, if you ask, like, people feel pressured if you ask a team of 12 players, hey, who wants to go? And you've always got your majority gung-ho want to go and they're not affected by this. And you've got 2 or 3 players, which that makes the trip, right? Like, if you have a team of 12 and you have 3 guys that can't go financially, you can't go. So those 3 players feel obligated to say yes. And it puts them in a bind that they didn't expect to be in. And I'm trying to be personally, because I have teams that want to do this, sympathetic to that. And it's hard. It's hard to send people away.
And Lucas, can you speak to the Airbnb situation that we always did, which I feel like is so much more economically sensible for families to do, but they're not allowed to do it because they're strong-armed. You have to use the team hotels or you guys forfeit. Lucas, tell our listeners about Airbnb.
Well, a couple of things, and just kind of like piggyback off Bobby's point, the other thing to consider is when you are making these trips, I mean, you're playing until Sunday, you go back to your home city on Monday, Tuesday, and if you're playing on a Thursday, these parents have to take off like work sometimes, depending on how far away it is, on Wednesday. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they don't go to work. It's just like they're working 2 days out of the week.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did
Some
Airbnbs.
of them don't mind that though.
I know. Yeah, we did Airbnbs, and actually a lot of times, this is saucy tip right here. Our parents would go in, they'd go in on a fund to pay the fees to not stay in hotels, because it was going to be less expensive to go into another hotel for a much lower rate and just pool their money to pay off the fee for not staying at the sponsor hotel. And Dan and I always did that when we traveled. We'd go Airbnbs, get a spot that's, actually near the character of the city and for half the price for twice the stay, as opposed to staying in the state of play hotels.
Well, and you can also, the big perk there is that you can buy groceries because you have a refrigerator, you have a kitchen. Like, we stayed in I think one of our last ones, we were in Chicago, and it was me and our assistant coach and his wife, and then my assistant coach and her girlfriend. So it was 5 of us in a house, and we paid like $110 or $120 a night for 5 of us. And we all bought groceries, so it was a low cost. We were eating healthier. We could pack food. It was like it's such a better experience than being in a hotel where you have to go eat out and you can't really keep perishable, healthy food. And if we just stop strangling everyone with these stupid hotel, you have to pay to play or play to, stay to play. That just right there, if everyone could stay in Airbnb, it helps, local people renting out their homes, like the local economy. You can eat healthier. Like, that probably cuts the cost of a family. Like, feeding a family 5 is expensive. I mean, I have no experience in that, but it's got to be expensive. Yeah, it's expensive just for me to eat out. Yeah, it sucks.
And Dan, I know we talked about this before, but like, I don't understand, like, the state of play and the gate fees are the 2 biggest things that all of my parents would bitch about, and rightfully so, because it just feels so psychologically messed up. You're paying thousands of dollars to be on this team, and then you get hit every weekend with you have to stay in this hotel and you have to pay to get in. It's just like, why as a tournament company, like if you're that thirsty for money, I would, like me as a coach, I'd much rather you just build it into the tournament fee.
Right.
That's
it right there. You just
have it be done.
People don't like to be nickel and dimed.
Yeah,
it's
for
just,
sure.
I'd rather, if I go get my car fixed, like just give me the price. Don't tell me what the add-ons are. Like give me, even if if it's supposed to be $1,000 and I get nickel and dimed up to 1,200, just tell me 1,200. Like that's the same thing with the tournament companies. Now, obviously that nickel and dime cost gets put on the parents as opposed to like the team, the guy that runs the team, us or whoever's running that team. But then you build that into your team fee and you just tell parents, like parents are more understanding if you just shoot them straight. Like something similar is we used to charge for uniforms separately, make parents buy their uniforms whatever they want. And then after 1 year of doing that, I was like, we're done with this. Like the team fee's going up, the uniforms included, no questions asked. And the amount of headaches it eliminated were just astronomical for me. And they were paying literally the same amount. I mean, they were they were paying the same amount, probably a little bit more for me to do the uniforms just because they don't have to buy a helmet, 2 years in a row or whatever. So it's these tournament, I'm not going to fault anybody for trying to make money, like, tournament companies and
no, you can do that. You can do that. Like drug dealers, you can fault them for trying to make money.
Sure. It's a living, right?
Yeah,
but,
you can.
Like we don't know,
Murder
like some
for
of these
hire.
college fields, we play at, one of my coaches runs Joliet Slammer Stadium, professional
dogfighting rings. You can fault them too.
Well, we could, but we don't.
Okay, continue on.
So like the Joliet Slammers field, we play some tournaments that advertise that as a field. I know that field is very, very expensive compared to, because it's all turf, it's a stadium. So tournament companies are fronting that cost and the umpires. So there are costs. So it's not like these tournament companies are getting fields for free. But at the same time, it's like are you ever going to get what you pay for with some of these tournament companies? I think the answer is just absolutely no. Like you're just not going to get your value in that tournament fee from any of these tournaments because you're not getting all 15 kids in your team recruited by SEC schools. Like you might get one kid who gets noticed for good play and the rest of them go home wondering, what the hell happened? You're just not going to get the value that parents perceive that they're going to get going to these big tournaments. So I don't know what's the fix? Like what's the perfect tournament scenario, Dan?
Well, so I want to give some concessions. So some of the good things about the tournament format, there are some really strong tournaments, like basically some of the national ones, like some of the big PG ones. I don't know. I know prep baseball is doing like big things. I'm not aware of like where some of their bigger like national tournaments, but if you go to like the WWBA World Series, like there's some very serious scouting at those. If you're a national level team, like a very, very legit team. But even then, like 15U, there's very little scouting because most 15U players aren't going off the board. So coaches aren't putting them again on their very efficient recruiting list. Like they're not going to spend 3 days on a 15U tournament because they're probably not going to sign any 15U kids, right? So it's still the vast majority is at 17U and to a lesser extent 16U. And then some of the destinations are really cool for a lot of kids that won't play in college. Playing on some of those big stadiums, though, that's a very cool, like fun experience. Like I totally get that, and that's cool that someone can provide that for them. I mean, I never played in like Vanderbilt's field when I was in high school. That would have been amazing, right? Like, so there's some good stuff that comes of this. Like, I personally really enjoyed being in Nashville, being in Chicago, like with my coaches, staying in Airbnb, getting to feel the pulse of a new city. Like for like a single coach, like that was fun. There's and like the travel's like cool, but again, does that format need to exist? I played Baltimore Metro baseball when I was coming up, and that was an extremely strong league, and it was obviously like the Baltimore Metro area, so like within an hour of Baltimore, and that was like basically the format was there was 8 or 12 teams in the league, and there was one team. So if you're 16, the 16s. If you didn't make the Yankee Rebels or the Maryland Mariners or the Baltimore or the Yaus, what are they called? They're the Maryland Orioles. You just didn't play Metro. Like it was a strong league because there was one team, not daddy ball. It's like I had some like old salty coach. And if you made that team, you were legit, like you were good. And it was really good baseball. and you just traveled within like an hour radius pretty much. Like Carroll County was as far as I would go, from me being in Harford County growing up. And basically if you won the league, like you played, that was your summer. And if you won the league, you went to the Dizzy Dean World Series, and that was like a very legit tournament. And there was also, I think that was in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, but it was a cool old ballpark. I never got to go because our team never won. We were like a fourth-ish place team usually. And the Metro team would win that thing a lot. Like it was a really, really good league because there's really good baseball in the Northeast and the metropolitan area. So that was a fine format. I got good. I got pushed. I competed. There were players better than me. Got like Mark Teixeira played in that league. Gavin Floyd played in that league. Anyone who was anyone in Baltimore in like the 80s, 90s, 2000s played in the Metro League. And there was not a thing wrong with that system. It wasn't super expensive. My dad was driving me to every game. My mom was driving me. There was nothing wrong with it. It was not broken. And scouts would find the best players because they knew they're going to be in the area. Any Maryland school, come on over. Like, the Oriole schedule. Coach is a call. Like it was a fine system. Lucas, what did you play growing up? Did you play Legion ball or like what did you do?
No, so I played on a travel team from ages 11 to, well, essentially, I guess, when I graduated high school. But I stayed on that team even in college. That team aged together. But yeah, I mean, I was very much a part of the current system. So it was, 6 or 7 tournaments over the course of the summer, where you're leaving on a Thursday, playing Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and coming home with a Wednesday practice, Tuesday, Wednesday practice. Like that was all of my junior high and high school years for sure.
Right. Yeah. It was when I was playing, I mean, it was local travel 11 to 15. But when I was 16, I played on a team that was basically national. We were out of town every week. And when I was 17, I lived in Southern Indiana, about 6 hours away from Chicago. Summer.
I'm sorry about that.
It was.
I lived in Southern Indiana too. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Evansville, actually. That's where I was at.
That's where I played. Yeah, I played there for summer.
Princeton, Indiana.
The swampiest air of all time. So
humid. So you're talking like, I mean, we were in Kentucky, Georgia, Florida every weekend. I mean, those were, to Dan's point, like those were big national tournaments. They were worth going to. The competition was great. What the national tournaments are now, aside from those venues, like I coach a fall team, actually the sweatshirt I'm wearing, it's an all-star fall team. And we went to West Palm Beach, we played at Jupiter, which is the Marlins complex. Kids don't get a chance to play on minor, spring training fields all that often.
Yeah, that's a cool experience for sure.
And there were 100 schools there and pro scouts, and we were only 15 years old, a 15U team. So it was a big time event. Now the thing of that is those tournaments like that are invites. So if you want to get to those, like you need to be with a team that's either got kids signed already, or you're with an organization that has a history of getting kids to high level college. Yeah. So it's not like Lucas can't just start a team, his son's 15 years old, get the local kids and then go play in these nice tournaments as like a reward to these kids. They're not going to be invited. So it's like you have to be with an organization that can get you to some of those tournaments. And then if you're not, then, again, if you're 15 years old, 16 years old, how are you going to get professional scouting, especially with the new draft rules? You're not on that radar. And if you are, you're already on one of these teams. Like there's, the system.
And pro scouts don't go to, like, we both know a couple of scouts. Pro scouts don't go to 15U games. They just don't. They're going to 17, 18U games.
Right.
They're looking for the draft. They're not anywhere close to looking at kids that young. But
so we did have some pro scouts at this 15U tournament, and Grant, we saw some guys that were legitimate pro prospects. They were throwing 90 to 92 and they're freshmen in high school. We have a kid on our team. That's
Lucas, what would you do to fix the system? Like, if you were consulting for a local organization and they said, "Hey, Lucas, we want to make the best experience possible. What would you say that we do so you could design their system? What would you do for a team?"
I don't know. I feel like that's a really, really big question. I feel like the issue that a lot of the issues that we are facing have arisen from, like I was saying earlier, this like weird escalation of like the whole travel thing in general. Like, for example, I know a couple of the local organizations I've worked with in the past have been like, basically they have and this is almost a derogatory term now, but they have like in-house leagues, right? So you take everybody who wants to play baseball, and you set up a league where, whether you divide it by age or by talent level or whatever, it's a local league that there's almost no travel expense, but you're playing a shitload of baseball. Mm-hmm. And then you have, it's almost like the pro model. You have the legitimate, really, really good talent, the invite only talent that actually is justified to be traveling and to be in front of scouts. And that model works. The problem is when you are disgruntled that you're not making it to a travel team, you go, well, shit, I'm just going to make my own travel team, and I'm going to set up my own travel schedule. And then that evolves into what we have now, which feels like a kind of like a desaturation of talent across the board. Like the Dan, I know you know this better than anybody, that the like dynamic range of talent that we would see at tournaments was like, it was crazy. Like you just get your ass kicked, and then you turn around, and then the next team you played would just be a joke.
Just laughable. Yeah.
I think the real issue is the perception of value in the tournaments, in just playing, in the team you may be on. I think the fundamental change in what tournaments, like in how tournament baseball is going to be viewed, is in the education of what recruiting actually is for 16 to 18-year-old players.
That was going to be my point, is like if you were to sit down a kid or a parent and you were to ask them, like, what do you want from your travel baseball experience? And the answer is, I want to get recruited. That has to like stop. Now, if your answer is to say, well, like, I want to travel, I want to play at some like new places, or I just want to play baseball. Because that was the other thing I was going to ask you guys, is I don't have a good sense of, because like objectively, the good things of the tournament model are potential to play on cool fields, like the as a coach, having the schedule set for you and like the umpires there and all that kind of stuff is great. Right. But what is the actual value of playing at, Northwestern's field or Vandy's field? Like, I understand that's cool, and I benefited from that a little bit when I was young, but at the end of the day, it's like, here's what my experience was. It was showing up to the ballpark and being like, oh my God, this is sweet. And then the game starts and you forget that you're playing there. And then it's 7 innings go by and you went, oh yeah, I played on their field. Like the actual like value that I got from it was little. It's like I could play at a high school field just the same, and I'm still playing baseball. It's not as fun in the warm up, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, we had, Lucas, you and I had thought about doing this, was like, look, one of the problematic things was we had a kid who was really good. Well, we had a lot of kids who were really good. One of them was, we were in talks with the local school, Illinois State, about coming to watch one of our kids, and he really wanted to come see him. He's like, all right, when's he going to be in town? And it's like, we didn't have another local tournament scheduled for, I think, the rest of the summer, or maybe for like 4 weeks away. And recruiting is time sensitive, like especially in the summer. Like they might spend their money in the month of June, and then if they see a guy in July, like they've spent some of their scholarship money, they don't have much left. So we're like, oh, so you guys both live in the same town, but yet if you want to come see him, you have to drive to Indianapolis to see him play. It's like, this is the stupidest thing. Like, why don't we just call up the other like 4 or 6 really good teams in our area? We'll do a round robin. We'll call every college within 75 miles and say, hey, all the good teams in the area are playing this weekend here locally. Come watch us. They'd be like, awesome. That's great. One-stop shop for recruiting. Like, we'll make that work on our schedule. We'll send somebody out, even if, a lot of recruiters are already got their schedule set. That makes so much sense. And then if you want to do like one big trip to like a big tournament, just to do it, so be it. But the problem is that when every team is doing this tournament schedule, you can't find any other teams to like break away from it. Like, again, like what Lucas said earlier, if you don't do the tournament schedule, you're just playing a couple trash local teams that don't do the tournament schedule because they're just not very good at all. Whereas if we all broke away, unified, and we could say, hey, let's do the first half of the summer and we'll all play local, all these really good teams. We'll book fields. So team A books a field, and we make it like a league. And then after that, we'll say there's 2 weekends for our local area to like go travel. So we'll do like 2/3 of the summer is local, 1/3 is we go do some like national level stuff, whatever. But like,
right,
if we all organize you can break the system. If no one organizes and everyone's still doing it, you can't do it. It's just untenable because again, there's no one good to play if everyone's out traveling every weekend in a tournament, and you can't just break into a tournament. And that's why this needs to change now. Like coronavirus is making it's possible now to break this system. Just don't go back to it. Talk to local coaches. Don't go back to it, and it'll break. They'll have to start conceding stuff. They want people to go back to the tournaments. They're going to say, all right, we won't charge you for hotels. We won't charge a stupid gate fee or whatever it is. And if that means they go under, so be it. And they might have to raise their fees to $1,800, but they're not going to nickel and dime you anymore. And you can stay cheaper or whatever it is. I mean,
well, and again, another part of this is to Bobby's point, like, because I can imagine, Dan, rewinding the clock 6 years or 5 years, and you and I are having this conversation with our parents, and they go, well, how are we going to get recruited? And it's like,
yeah,
you wouldn't have been recruited anyway for that, like in that way. And on top of that, I can tell you that you're going to save $1,000 on our team fees or $1,500 on our team fees because we're not traveling every
and
weekend.
You're going to save $3,000 in travel that you won't spend.
Right.
And then you can go to 10 PBR events. You
And
can go to every one. Yeah.
You go to every PBR event. You can play more games. You can probably play 25% more games just because you could organize the schedule. Where if there is recruiting interest, we'll know exactly when our arms are going because it's basically like a mini season. Yeah. Like there are a lot of benefits to it.
And you don't run into that situation that we've both been in because we both cared for the health of our pitchers, and we've seen many teams that absolutely just don't. Where you get to Sunday in a big tournament, a really big one, you have to win 6 games to make it a Sunday. You might play 8. No one has the arms for 8 games in 3 days. No one. Right. A big league team doesn't. And so you get to this point where Lucas and I have been many times where it's like, I kind of hope we lose today because I'm not going to abuse a kid's arm. Like we've had 5 kids through 4+ innings, 5+ innings. And then we have 3 other kids that already pitched once or twice, 1 or 2 innings each. Like we're legit spent. And all these kids are playing in the field. The kid that started had to play short a day later. Like kids' arms get worn the hell out. And then you get to Sunday and you're like, I have literally no options. And I just kind of hope we play well and it's not in the cards so that I don't hurt some kid's future. And that's the big problem with this. Like Lucas and I always felt that, yeah, we want to win and we're competitive and we want the kids to have a great time, but we also kind of don't want to make it to Sunday if that means shortening a kid's lifespan in baseball.
Which is a whole nother can of worms we haven't even gotten into. Yeah. That the format of for that reason and the institution of mercy rules, you get into these weird situations as a coach where either you're rooting for your team to lose or you're beating the absolute piss out of a team because you're trying to get to 10 runs in 5 innings so that you only have to throw one guy. And it just gets into like some hairy, like it stops becoming baseball sometimes when you're playing a tournament because you're throwing a game because you're 3-0 and you don't need the last pool play game. So it's just like, it gets weird sometimes.
Time limits.
Time limits.
All that stuff.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare.
Calling time so you run out the clock. Like that kind of stuff is gross. And that always made me the most uncomfortable. And it's all inherent because of the tournament model.
It's not so much the tournament model, it's the bracket playoff model.
That's what I mean. Like
because they have to move it along.
We do tournaments where like you go down to the Music City in Nashville, it's 5 games. That's it. Like your 5 games are scheduled the whole weekend, and then they're like if you go 5-0, that's it. Your tournament's over. If you go 0-5, your tournament's over. Which is a great, I think, in the tournament model like hierarchy. That's a pretty solid way to do it, I think. But at the same token, like we're going to Nashville and we set up a hotel for our parents and we're playing at 5 different fields. One of them might be an hour and a half from our hotel. One of them might be 5 minutes from the hotel. Like it's just logistically, it's a crapshoot, flip a coin. You may get to play at the feature field Vanderbilt. You may never play at the feature field and only play at the local high school field 5 times, which parents do get upset about. I can understand that. Like you go to Nashville, it says Vanderbilt tournament on there. They've advertised Vanderbilt like they're throwing it in your face. And then one team's got 3 games there and you don't have any. And you're just left wondering, what the hell?
Well, and I would much rather play in a tournament like that where it's like, these are your 5 games.
Yeah, you set your rotation.
Families
can
like schedule stuff. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, the other thing is
if your son's a multi-sport guy, like, hey, you're gonna pitch on Sunday. Don't come down till Saturday night. Go to your football training. You've got football in the summer, whatever.
That's another great point. Is like it would allow much more flexibility with multi-sport guys.
Right.
Well, and it's like literally no one cares about you winning a tournament. I mean, it's like fun for a day, and then no one cares.
Yeah.
Or even worse, winning the bronze bracket.
Yeah. You don't feel good about that.
No.
Especially when you've
had such a weird thing. It's like they're giving you a medal, and you're like, what? But there's guys that are there's like 12 teams that are better than us. It's weird.
I hated playing silver bracket because it was like we knew, like our team, the teams I coach were very consistently like always on the border of making it to gold bracket on Sunday, and then inevitably get bumped to silver and then run the table, and it's like, oh my God, we have to play 8 games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, the number of games is like the benefit, I guess. Like you got your money's worth, quote unquote, but at the expense of what? Like the expense of staying there on Sunday until 7:00 at night, having to throw this guy who started game 1 of the tournament a 3rd time just to get through the last game of the tournament. What's the benefit at that point? Nobody's there.
5 games in 3 days is like the perfect, like that's more than enough. Like 6 games in 3 days is tough.
Right.
Yeah. And if you don't get through a game with a starter, which kids just implode on the mound. It's spectacular. I mean, you're screwed. I mean, if one of your starters, especially if you're like a kind of thin staff, a starter goes 2 innings, sometimes you almost hope to get 10 run ruled so you don't burn arms, and that sucks too. Like everything about that time limit, run differential, determining who goes on, all that whole system just sucks. It just sucks. And like you said, I remember I got accused in one of my last games of trying to run out the clock because we were ahead by like 2 runs, 3 runs, and the time limit was coming down. And I hadn't made a visit, I don't believe, all game. And when I make visits, they're like real visits. Like we talk about stuff. Like I help them. It's not just nonsense. And I don't run out there all the time. I'm not like there's security blanket either. But like the other team was down by 2 runs, like one of the last innings. And my pitcher was like getting kind of wild and getting kind of nervous and like putting guys on base. Guess what? When the game's on the line and your pitcher's not super under control, it's a good time for a mound visit, right? And this coach was like yelling at me from the other dugout saying that I was like trying to run out the clock. It's like, no, dude, I'm trying to win a baseball game because I'm a baseball guy. Like I'm not an idiot like you and like, it's just such a baffling thing. And then like you said, there are people that are legit just running out there, just talking about nothing, trying to run out the clock. It's like, let's just play baseball. Can we just do that? And
no, we can't do that. We can't do that. We need to manipulate the system. The worst is when it happens in like youth baseball, like young 11-year-old kids where you're like, oh, let's slow walk it out to the mound. Like that 11 kid doesn't need a pep talk. Like he doesn't even know what sport he's playing. Just let him go. Like just let him go. The time limit. There's 3 minutes left, and you got the balls to walk out there and talk to this kid. Like really, the kid thinks he thinks he's at swim practice. Like just let him go.
He thinks he's at swim practice? Weird.
I've got some interesting players.
Well, and like when I coached 13U, that was like the fact that they knew that there was a time limit, the fact that they knew there were run rules. That was the number one question I got in like innings 5, 6, 7 was how much time is left. And I'm like, this is literally the exact, we're doing the exact opposite of what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be focusing on playing baseball, and you guys are worried about running out the clock so we win the game. It's so dumb.
It makes baseball like every other sport where there's a clock involved. Like baseball is supposed to be a sport with no clock. And I get the time limit, like you get it, like everybody understands why they do it, but at some point it's okay, well, are we just milking this bottom of the 5th so we don't have to play a 6th inning? Like, we'll just go. Just let's do it.
But
do whatever, play the game.
If you were to shrink the size of these tournaments, make them smaller, change the format so it's, a 5-game guarantee or whatever, then you wouldn't, and you only had, 20, 30 teams instead of 80, 90, then you wouldn't have to, have an hour 45 time limit, which the fact that you would try to play 7 innings in some of the time restrictions was laughable, but
yeah. So let's transition, Lucas. Last thing I want to cover with you is, as a strength coach, what is superfluous? What is important? what can athletes do at home to really impact and stay fit and strong and ready for the season? So there's a lot of stuff you could do. You could follow a Instagram influencer and learn 11 different variations of a hip bridge and do all these weird things, new things every day. But what's actually important and what are you recommending people do?
So here's the thing that I've been telling all of our athletes is like, the concern is with the amount of time that we are forced to stay outside of a gym, everyone's regressing, everyone's getting weaker, everyone's getting out of shape, which if they choose to do nothing at all is probably going to happen. Now it happens slower than I think people think it does. But the number one thing that we know is you can maintain gains that you've made in strength or in fitness even under like really low volumes, if you are able to maintain high intensities. Now, the problem that we're running into is how do you maintain a high intensity when, you're working out at home? Here's what I tell all our athletes is like the stupid stuff where you're like loading a laundry basket full of books and putting it on your head and doing Bulgarian split squats is like, you can do that kind of stuff if you want. I don't know if that makes you feel better. If it has a mental therapeutic effect, then go ahead. But it's not helping you be a better athlete in any way. So like one of the things I've told my athletes is like, if you get out and sprint 2 days a week, like that goes a really long way in terms of maintaining strength gains, because sprinting is obviously a really high intensity activity. And doing it twice a week is more than enough to preserve or at least delay the decay of any of the strength gains that you gained prior. But like, I don't know, like with this, a lot of the stuff and that seems like an oversimplification, right? It's like, okay, well, sprint 2 days a week and what else? And like, when it comes to that what else stuff, like I tried to be really patient with some of the social media stuff because people needed guidance. They needed voices telling them what they can be doing at home. But now it's just like, I can't go on Instagram anymore, because if I have to watch somebody else do some like hip thrusting with someone sitting on your hips is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. And I understand why people are doing it. It's because they have nowhere else to turn. But
what are you talking about? hip thrusting with somebody sitting on your.
Have you guys seen this?
No.
I need to see this.
Well, so yeah, it'd be someone sitting on your hips, and then you're thrusting them into the air, and it looks exactly like you would think it looks like. And
That's
it's
exactly what I'm picturing.
Yeah, it's like, what for what? Why are we doing this? And the reason is so you can put it on Instagram. But so yeah, it's like that's like my biggest thing. And I think I heard you guys mention this in a past Brushback, where it's like, all right, so if I'm sprinting, can I just like be an adaptive human being? Like, what are the things that I can do that are not completely stupid? Can I do push-ups? Can I do chin-ups? Guaranteed that you can find a spot to do. Now's a great time to do single leg variations of stuff. Where like, just speaking for myself, I haven't been able to do a pistol squat since I was like, I don't know if I've ever been able to do a pistol squat in my life. Because I'm a big fat guy. And so I've been doing that. And it's like, that's been more than enough to elicit like some muscle soreness, make me feel like I'm doing something. So it's like, if you're sprinting, now's a great time to do push-ups and push-up variations, to do chin-ups and chin-up variations, and then unilateral stuff, so single leg stuff. And it's like, if you're doing that, and you're doing that 2-3 times a week, that's more than enough to buy you time until you're able to get back in the gym.
Yeah.
And how do you feel about gyms reopening as far as the cleanliness? Like, do you think they're going to go back to normal? Do you feel like it's going to be slow? Like with your weight room at Heartland, like what do you feel like the future of, say, all commercial gyms open on June 1? Like, how does that look?
So this is interesting. So like Heartland, like the place I'm at now is just, so I also teach, and so I teach a strength training class, which part of it is like getting into the gym, and they're kind of holding off the decision on whether or not I'm going to be able to teach that class in the fall. And it's like, look, there is no, like, it's binary, right? There is no middle ground where we just like touch stuff a little bit. So with gyms, if you're going to open them up, they're going to be the dirtiest places. Like and Dan knows this better than anybody, that when we owned a facility, and Bobby, you know this too,
Yep.
You can say all day long that you're going to keep it spotless, but it's just gyms are so hard to keep clean, and it's just like so much fluid gets exchanged at gyms that it's, and so I don't know. I know that they're saying that gyms might be one of the early openers, but you can say, all right, well, we're going to reduce volume, so we're going to have this many people out in the gym at one time, and then we're going to put in buffers in between groups so that we can like disinfect all. It's like,
right.
That's going to be really, really difficult to do, and it's one of those things that if just like a little bit of COVID gets through, then the system's broken. So it's like, there's going to come a point where it's just like, it's either going to be gyms aren't open or everything is open. Because that's the other thing I find fascinating, is the idea behind the like phasic reopening, is the fact that you think you can let people trickle back in is insane. Once people sniff that that things are getting back to normal, it's going to be all bets are off.
Yeah, and I think it's more like perception with people. Like, if you think the gym is dirty and it's going to be like not safe for you to go to, then you're probably going to see nobody at the gym. I'm under the impression that once gyms open, or once anything opens, like there is going to be an absolute flood of people going to whatever's open. Like gyms are already, like you said, gyms are already dirty. You know, if you didn't catch something at the gym before, like you probably got the same statistically like chance of catching whatever else now that they reopen. And everybody does a decent job of, well, let me rephrase that. There are options to disinfect, like the bench with the spray, and they've got paper towels at most gyms.
Which I hate doing, which I never did. Never did that.
Well, you're a part of the issue.
I'm a bad person. Yeah.
Yeah. But the gyms are like, you take the risk going to a gym regardless. You take the risk going to, touching as like sweaty people laying on the mat. You take that risk, like using that same mat, whether there's a pandemic flu or just disgusting hygiene in general.
Well, I think the difference is that, we talk about how coronavirus is transmitted through the tiny droplets, which they can be really, really tiny, like almost like the mist coming out of your mouth, which again, I don't think is a problem, like running around, being outside, walking. But when you're in a gym and you're out of breath and those are going to be like bigger droplets than when you're just breathing. And they're going to be bigger droplets when you're coughing after you're tired. Like, exercise makes you react in weird ways. And there's going to be more of that on your hands, on your, like the way that people are getting infected from this. I think it's going to still be very heavy in commercial gyms rather than anyone else. Like standing in line in a crowded restaurant has got to be way safer than being in a gym where people are coughing and they're
Sure.
out of breath and they're huffing and puffing, and there's
so many
liquid
fluids. There's so many fluids inside of you that when you work out, come outside.
Stop. Just think about the most disgusting person at your local gym. Like, you avoid that guy at all costs. Now, you're giving me is that, like, Lucas and Dan, your descriptions are just making me picture that guy and I want to throw up.
Yeah, the naked guy just spread eagle in the locker room.
That guy's probably the cleanest guy. He's always washing.
Dude, it was like my third day in the YMCA here in DC, and I walk in, there's this naked guy cutting his toenails. It's like, go to your home. Do you have a home? You must have a home. This place costs $100 a month. You must have a home. Don't cut your fingernails here or your toenails. It's disgusting. Like, that's not an okay public. You can groom yourself in your home. Like,
what's the most disgusting thing somebody could do at your local
well,
gym?
There's there could be so many things.
I need your one. I got the one that I know that I think is without getting
But you can't open up to anything. Like, a guy could take a dump in a smoothie and I don't know what. Like, that's why this is a bad question.
Something you've seen.
But
what's the most disgusting thing you've seen done at your local gym? I can tell you what I find the most disgusting is
give me a frame of reference here.
All right, so the guys that shower and walk around with no flip-flops on makes me want to throw up. I don't know why. Maybe because from being in a locker room so much. Like,
that's gross. But we're not in the jungle. You're not getting hookworms from walking. Like it's gross. But at the end of the day, it's not like that doesn't bother me that much.
For me, it's simple stuff. Like because like being a strength coach, you sort of like, you're always sort of aware of the amount of grossness going on, just because, and just like sitting in a gym for 30 minutes and you see the amount of people that cough or sneeze or make contact with their face with their hands, and then they immediately go to a dumbbell. And so it's just like those interactions of like face to hand to dumbbell to hand to face happen literally hundreds of times in a gym.
All right, I got another one. The really hairy guy at the gym that decides to wear just a tank top that is not. It's like a. If a strong gust of wind, a thing would just dissolve into the air.
Right.
That guy makes me want to throw up. And he's always using the most popular machines. He's always touching everything. He's got hair growing on hair. Like,
actually, I now can think of it. Okay, here's mine.
Perfect.
So if you are foreign to a gym and you're staring at a bench, there's usually, depending on how the bench is designed, there's usually a pretty obvious head spot and butt spot. So like your head goes on this side, your butt goes on this side. I was in the gym one time, and this very large individual man who did not look well kempt was doing dumbbell bench. And at the end of his bench set, he sat up, right? And then he stood up. And when he stood up, he had a big old SWAS mark. We all are familiar with what that looks like, right? And then this poor innocent little college girl came, and she did chest support rows, but she put her head on the wrong side. So she put her head where his butt was. And he didn't clean that bench when he was done. So
I got one more.
Rank.
So I don't know if you guys use the sauna. Like my gym has a sauna. Like go in the sauna, sweat it out. Sitting next to somebody in the sauna who's doing this, like throwing the sweat off. But the sound of that, like get like squeegeeing sweat off your. I'm gonna leave and throw up. Like I'm literally gonna throw up thinking about this. That is the most disgusting thing at the gym. That is, I win. I have to win, right? other than Dan talking about, other than somebody making my chocolate smoothie with their own feces, that is the most disgusting. That's the sound. Yeah. It's not even like I don't even need to look at him. I can hear it, and I want to throw up and punch him in the face.
I mean,
that's gross. Yeah,
that's a completely feasible gym experience that everyone will have. But Bobby, you're right. Like when we do transition to the new normal, gyms are the first place people want to go. Like everybody's like thirsty to get into a gym.
Yeah,
right now.
And it's gyms, restaurants, like places where you're probably a little more social than being at your house. But that guy squeegeeing his sweat needs to get his gym membership taken away. He needs to be I don't know, publicly shamed. I'll do it. I'm happy to.
Well, you wonder if they're just going to close saunas and stuff like that. Like, just like, look, this is a big risk. Only you old gross dudes are going in here. Like, we don't really need this anymore. God. I think it makes sense to just like fill it with concrete. Just like goodbye saunas, because
disgusting.
I don't like saunas anyway, so I would never use one. But that big seems like guy. I think a lot of those little communal spaces like that are not good. They're not going to be well used by people, number one, and are probably just like, look, this is a trying to mitigate health risk. That seems like something that should just be permanently closed.
Like the sweaty guy with the ladle and over the hot coals to get the steam in there.
All of it's great. This is your own fault for being in a sauna with other men you don't know. Like that's just your own fault. Gross.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Your sauna experience is just you sitting in there and then like dry heaving the whole time.
Yeah.
While you're watching everyone in there.
It's so nasty. In one of those gym towels with the orange stripe down the middle that's only this big. That's right. Everybody just decides to wear it. Like
locker rooms are a terrible place. Just the public, and I haven't worked out in a commercial gym until just now that I moved, and they're not my favorite places.
Well, that's the other thing that sometimes I even forget about myself is I'm used to private gyms mostly, which are difficult to keep clean, but you maybe can make an argument that you have a chance. Commercial gyms, you can forget about it. They're too big, people are too gross, and there's just no way.
Yeah, it's and I think they're just going to change in general, because right now commercial gyms rely so heavily on people signing up that never go, because they're way over. They're so I want to say they're like something like 10 times above capacity.
Right. Like
fire marshal capacity, like they have to be to make the numbers work. And people are going to cancel. And people are not going to just continue to pay their $10, $40, $75 a month gym membership when they just know they're not going to go back, and that it's unsafe, potentially unsafe. Like, yeah, I don't think they're going to hang on to them like they used to.
Like your $10 a month gyms where it's just strictly like weights, like the more country,
the
quote,
Planet
unquote, country club.
Fitnesses.
Yeah, the Planet Fitnesses I think are in big trouble. I think more like the country club gym type. Like I like to play racquetball, so my gym has a racquetball court. So like I'd still want to go there to do that, even if I don't touch any of the weights. Like pool, something where you can't really have in your basement or a house. I think those gyms will be more sustainable, or like they're more expensive. Don't get me wrong, but there's a reason to join those. Where like the Planet Fitness, I don't want to be around a Planet Fitness. What do they call it? A clunker? The buzzer?
The lunk alarm.
Lunk alarm.
I don't want.
Well, I agree with you.
I think
it's a good point.
The margins on Planet Fitness aren't great to begin with. So the fact that you're going to be eating away at that even more, it's like, no way.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think those social fitness sports are going to grow. Like, I think people would love and feel safe going to play racquetball, even though they've never done it before, with one person in a box. It's like you're in a quarantined room essentially.
Like a mouse, like watching two mice run around.
Yeah. Like I'm thinking of the health club that we grew up with in my town, and like it's a big place, lots of different activities to do. Like there's more places to be than just the weight room. I think those places will be the ones that people are more excited and feel safe going back to, rather than the ones where, like you said, it's just a little boxed up gym.
Yeah, they feel more
lots of equipment.
They feel more social, like a social club. Like there's
people are dying for people are dying for social activities, and like I would for sure go play racquetball with somebody right now if I had any friends.
Like I tell you what, it's getting to the point.
For sure.
It's getting to the point where I might actually strike up a conversation with Squeegee Sweat Guy in the sauna. Like
things are getting dire.
He's probably got some good stories. Like imagine
your lip.
Where
Marv
else does he
not Marv does not want to talk to you. His name's for sure Marv.
Where does he do these disgusting things other than the sauna? Like he's probably got great stories. Dinner parties. He's a great guest. He's the one. He wears a tank top, hairy tank top to dinner parties, and he's entertaining.
Showering his friends with sweat.
Yeah. Well, on that note, we're gonna wrap up for the day. Lucas, good to see you. Thanks for coming on. Good luck with your maskless runs. We appreciate it. Lucas, is there anywhere you'd like people to follow up with you on the web or website or anything?
Nope.
Incognito. So just pretend Lucas was never here. He's a nowhere man. You can find him on his nowhere land.
That's right.
What's the rest of the verse? Doing all his nowhere things
doing
for
all
nobody.
His nowhere things with nobody or something.
Yeah. But no, it was good to see you. We appreciate your perspective. I think we had a really good bit about tournaments. I was glad to talk about that because for the good of the parents and the kids in the country, I think it's time for amateur baseball to change. And I hope that changes. Like, I think it's a good change. And I hope tournament companies can find other ways to, keep their employees and do whatever they do. Like some businesses are just going to go under, and it's probably going to be a bunch of them, but hopefully they can adapt and find some new model that serves the community better.
Yeah. And two things. Number one, they're not necessarily mutually exclusive. I think both can exist. It's just that the tournament model shouldn't be the bulk of the innings played. And Dan, I was going to say, this might be the first time in a very long time that I've been on a podcast with you where we had a list of things that we, first of all, wanted to discuss before we started, and then didn't even get to them all.
I know.
Rare.
We didn't cover. What did we not cover?
Distance running for.
Oh, yeah. Value of distance running in general, which my body's got some feels about it. I've been running, but it's like, damn, we need to go fast. This slow thing is getting old. But anyway, I digress.
The arm injury thing, but
yeah. Bobby, read us out. We'll have Lucas back on another time, another round robin.
Good to see you.
Always a pleasure, Bobby.
Join us Friday. We're just going to talk Friday, I think. I don't think we've got a set
mystery
schedule.
Guest, maybe. It's a wild card. Friday's wild card day.
Maybe we'll have Lucas back. We'll talk about straight distance running. But thanks for watching. We'll see everybody Friday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern time.
See ya.
All right, guys.